Imagine a ghost haunting the map of Central America. A ghost of colossal ambition, of unimaginable wealth, and of geopolitical power. It's not a specter of the past, but a recurring dream of the future. A waterway so immense, it would dwarf one of the greatest engineering marvels of the modern world. This is the story of a canal that refuses to die, a project that has bankrupted tycoons, toppled governments, and now threatens to cleave a nation in two. This is the epic, controversial, and perhaps impossible tale of Nicaragua's Interoceanic Canal. For centuries, it has been the ultimate what-if of global trade. A second artery connecting the world's two great oceans, challenging the absolute dominance of the Panama Canal. It promises to lift a nation from poverty into prosperity, to unclog the arteries of global shipping, and to redraw the lines of influence on the world stage. But with every revival of this dream comes a nightmare of consequences. Environmental devastation on a scale never seen before, the displacement of ancient communities, and a high-stakes geopolitical game with the world's superpowers as the players. Just when the world thought the dream was finally buried, Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega has resurrected it once more, with a new, even more audacious plan. A $65 billion gamble that could either be the masterstroke of the 21st century or the most spectacular failure in modern history. Can this gargantuan vision ever become a reality? Or is it doomed to remain a tantalizing fantasy, a ghost that forever haunts the heart of the Americas? Before we journey deeper into this labyrinth of ambition and intrigue, if you believe in exploring the world's most daring ideas, make sure you subscribe and activate notifications. You're not just watching a video, you're joining a community of thinkers. Your support is the fuel for these deep dives, so hit that like button, and let's begin our investigation. The obsession with cutting a path through Nicaragua is almost as old as the discovery of the Americas itself. When Spanish conquistadors first laid eyes on the vast expanse of Lake Nicaragua, connected to the Caribbean by the mighty San Juan River, they didn't just see a body of water. They saw a divine shortcut, a God-given passage to the riches of the Pacific and the Orient, a way to bypass the treacherous voyage around Cape Horn. For centuries, this was the dream. Engineers and emperors, from King Philip II of Spain to Napoleon III of France, all drew plans. They saw the potential. The relatively flat terrain, the massive natural lake acting as a huge portion of the route. It seemed preordained. In the 19th century, as the United States rose as a global power, the Nicaraguan route was the front runner. It was the logical choice, the favored path for American interests. But geopolitics is rarely logical. A series of cunning political maneuvers, intense lobbying by French interests who held the failing Panama Project, and a well-timed postage stamp showing a Nicaraguan volcano erupting swayed the US Congress. The decision was made. Panama would get the canal, and Nicaragua's dream was deferred. The Panama Canal opened in 1914, a triumph of American engineering, and for 100 years, it held an undisputed monopoly on transoceanic trade in the Americas. Nicaragua was left with a ghost of what might have been. But ghosts have a way of returning. In 2013, the dream was reborn with a stunning announcement. The Nicaraguan government, led by President Daniel Ortega, had signed a monumental $50 billion deal with a little-known Hong Kong-based company, HKND, helmed by a mysterious Chinese telecom tycoon named Wang Jing. The promise was grandiose, almost mythical. They would build a canal 3 times longer, twice as deep, and wide enough for the world's largest superships, vessels that could never fit through the Panama Canal. This wasn't just a canal. It was a megaproject, complete with 2 deep water ports, an international airport, free trade zones, and tourist resorts. It was a vision of a new Nicaragua, a global economic hub. The world watched, half in awe, half in disbelief. Ceremonial shovels hit the dirt in 2014, but the project was immediately shrouded in controversy. There was no transparency, no independent environmental studies, and the concession granted Wang Jing's company unprecedented power over Nicaraguan land and sovereignty for 100 years. protests erupted, led by farmers and indigenous communities whose lands lay directly in the path of the planned excavation. And then, as quickly as it appeared, the money vanished. Wang Jing's personal fortune plummeted in the Chinese stock market crash of 2015. The grand project ground to a halt. The ceremonial shovels began to rust. For years, the project existed only on paper, a legal fiction that held the fate of thousands in limbo. Finally, in 2024, the government officially canceled the HKND concession. The ghost, it seemed, was finally laid to rest. But just weeks later, Ortega did the unthinkable. He announced the canal was back on, this time under state control, with a brand new route and an even bigger price tag. The revived plan is, in many ways, even more ambitious than its failed predecessor. The new proposed route is a staggering 445 kilometers long, more than 5 times the length of the Panama Canal. It's a completely different path, designed to address one of the most explosive criticisms of the old plan: the desecration of Lake Nicaragua, the nation's primary source of fresh water. The new route starts at Bluefields on the Caribbean coast, a region rich in Afro-descendant culture. From there, it would carve its way west, not through Lake Nicaragua, but through the already heavily polluted Lake Solotlan, also known as Lake Managua. It would then exit at Puerto Corinto on the Pacific. The scale is mind-bending. The canal is designed to be between 290 and 540 meters wide, with a depth of 27 meters. This would allow it to accommodate the world's largest ultra-large container vessels and supertankers, the very ships that give Panama nightmares. The cost? A colossal $64.5 billion. To lure in the necessary international investment from partners, Ortega is courting in China, Russia, and the Middle East. Nicaragua is offering a treasure trove of incentives, sweeping tax exemptions on all imports and machinery, and ironclad guarantees on property rights. The economic promise is the government's core selling point. They project the canal could create hundreds of thousands of jobs and rocket Nicaragua's GDP growth to an astonishing 9 or 10% annually, transforming one of the hemisphere's poorest nations. But financial analysts are deeply skeptical. After the spectacular collapse of the HKND venture, the world is wary. Is the project even profitable? With such a monumental price tag, could it ever generate enough revenue to pay for itself, let alone turn a profit? Especially when competing with the established, efficient, and ever-expanding Panama Canal. This isn't just an economic project, it's a declaration on the geopolitical chessboard. The construction of a Nicaraguan canal, especially with backing from China or Russia, would fundamentally alter the balance of power in America's backyard. For over a century, the United States has viewed the Panama Canal as a vital strategic asset. A Chinese-funded and potentially Chinese-influenced canal, just a few hundred miles to the north, is a scenario that sets off alarm bells in Washington, D.C. It represents a massive expansion of Chinese influence in a region the US has long considered its sphere of influence. It would give Beijing a significant strategic foothold over global maritime trade, a key part of its Belt and Road Initiative, often dubbed a modern Silk Road. Meanwhile, Panama isn't standing still. Facing its own challenges, particularly crippling droughts that are limiting traffic through its lock-based system, Panama is continuously investing in upgrades and exploring solutions to its water crisis. They are fighting to maintain their competitive edge. This raises the ultimate market question. In a world of shifting trade routes and new technologies, is there even enough demand for a second, hugely expensive canal in Central America? Or would Nicaragua build its dream only to find that the world's ships have sailed on by? Beyond the spreadsheets and geopolitical maps lies a cost that cannot be measured in dollars. The environmental and human toll of this project could be catastrophic. Environmentalists warn that the new route, while avoiding the pristine Lake Nicaragua, presents its own set of horrors. Lake Solotlan is already one of the most polluted lakes in the region, contaminated by decades of sewage and industrial runoff. Dredging its toxic sediment and connecting it to the oceans could trigger an ecological disaster of epic proportions, poisoning marine ecosystems on both the Pacific and Caribbean coasts. The sheer scale of the excavation would mean the destruction of vast swathes of rainforest and wetlands, critical habitats for countless species, including endangered jaguars and tapirs. But the deepest scars would be carved into the lives of the people. The proposed route cuts directly through the lands of indigenous and Afro-descendant communities, peoples who have lived on this land for centuries. Their farms, their homes, their sacred sites, all lie in the path of the bulldozers. The Nicaraguan government's track record on this is abysmal. The Inter-American Court of Human Rights recently condemned the state for its failure to consult or protect these communities during the previous canal plan. This new plan reignites those fears. Will these communities be forcibly displaced? Will their cultures be erased for the sake of a concrete waterway? This fierce local resistance, combined with international environmental opposition, forms a powerful front that could stall the project indefinitely. And then there is the raw, brute force challenge of the engineering itself. Building a 445-kilometer-long canal is a Herculean task. Unlike Panama, which is blessed with a geography that allows for a massive freshwater reservoir like Gatun Lake to feed its locks, Nicaragua lacks such a system for its new proposed route. Creating the necessary water supply to operate a lock system on this scale would require the construction of massive artificial reservoirs, an engineering and environmental challenge in its own right. Furthermore, the canal must be built in one of the most geologically volatile regions on Earth. Nicaragua sits directly on the Ring of Fire, a hotbed of seismic and volcanic activity. The country is frequently battered by powerful hurricanes. The canal's infrastructure, its locks, its banks, and its bridges would have to be designed to withstand catastrophic earthquakes and monster storms, adding immense complexity and cost to an already astronomically expensive project. The logistics are a nightmare, relocating entire communities, managing the disposal of billions of cubic meters of excavated earth and toxic sediment, and building the infrastructure to support a decade-long construction effort. At nearly $65 billion, it is an undertaking so vast, so complex, and so fraught with risk that it borders on the fantastical. So, can Nicaragua truly compete? On paper, its single greatest advantage is size. Its proposed depth and width would offer a tantalizing route for the new generation of megaships that are simply too big for Panama. This is its key selling point. But Panama has a 100-year head start. It has a global reputation for efficiency, reliability, and a well-established ecosystem of logistical and financial services built around it. It is the known, trusted quantity. Nicaragua would be starting from scratch, needing to build not just a canal, but an entire reputation for safety and dependability in the ruthless world of global shipping. And the competition is no longer just Panama. Climate change is opening up a new, once impossible route, the Arctic's Northern Sea route. As the ice melts, this passage offers a dramatic shortcut between Asia and Europe, an alternative that completely bypasses Central America. With the rise of transcontinental rail and shifting global manufacturing trends, Nicaragua must prove its canal isn't just an alternative to Panama, but a necessary addition to the world's infrastructure. Shippers are conservative. They will only switch routes if there is a compelling, long-term economic advantage. A slightly larger canal plagued by potential instability, environmental controversy, and geopolitical tension may not be enough to lure them away from the well-trodden path through Panama. The Nicaragua Canal remains what it has always been, a breathtaking vision balanced on a knife's edge. It is a symbol of a nation's undying hope for a prosperous future, but also a cautionary tale of the dangers of unchecked ambition. The Ortega government is pushing forward, desperate to secure the investment that could turn this centuries-old dream into concrete and steel. But the hurdles, financial, environmental, political, and engineering, are colossal, perhaps insurmountable. Will international investors risk billions on such a volatile project? Will the world stand by and watch the potential destruction of vital ecosystems and communities? And in the end, will the canal be a bridge to a better future, or a 445-kilometer-long monument to a fantasy that should have remained a ghost? The fate of Nicaragua, and a significant piece of the world's future trade, hangs in the balance. What do you think? Is the Nicaragua Canal a visionary project whose time has finally come, or a geopolitical folly of disastrous proportions? Let me know your verdict in the comments below. Thanks for watching.